The city had been preparing for this day for months. Billboards hung on every corner, bright with gold lettering and glittering lights. They promised the tallest Ferris wheel in the region, a new symbol of the park, and an attraction that will change the face of the city. For residents, this event was not only entertaining, but also symbolic. The park, long abandoned and dismal, was now being brought back to life. In the evening, as the sun was setting, crowds of people flocked to the central avenue. Music played from speakers, vendors hawked cotton candy and caramel apples, and children ran around with balloons. The atmosphere was festive, almost carnival-like. The air was filled with the scent of roasted nuts and fresh paint. The park hadn't yet fully settled in after its renovation. The Ferris wheel dominated the scene. Its white metal spokes glittered in the spotlights, and the brightly colored cabins, red, blue, yellow, and green, looked like toys. But the wheel itself was enormous, and as it slowly turned, it seemed to touch the sky. Among the crowd was the same couple. They arrived together, holding hands, and looked as if this evening was special for them. The girl in the light coat laughed, pointing at the lights, and the guy in the dark jacket nodded, but his gaze was fixed on the wheel. He said he wanted to be one of the first to ride it. When the city mayor took the microphone, the crowd fell silent. He spoke of the future, of how the park would become a place of meeting and joy for all generations. His words were met with applause, but many were now looking not at the stage, but at the wheel. At that moment, the spotlights brightened, and the ride began to spin at full power for the first time. The gondolas slowly rose, and the people inside waved their arms, laughing and shouting with delight. The couple waited their turn. They climbed into the cabin, which rocked gently as the door closed behind them. It was cozy inside, soft seats, transparent walls offering a view of the entire park. As the wheel moved off, the girl pressed herself against the glass and gasped. From above, the park lights formed a pattern, and beyond them stretched the city's streets, shimmering in the evening haze. Outside, a crowd joyfully watched each revolution. Children pointed at the gondolas, adults took photos. The wheels spun slowly, majestically, as if emphasizing its novelty and power. His friend dismissed it, probably a reflection, but the teenager insisted. No, it looked like a candle or a flashlight, and it moved on its own. Other witnesses later claimed to have heard a soft bell-like ringing. It echoed every time the couple's cabin reached its summit. No one paid it any attention at the time. The noise, music, and laughter drowned everything else out, but these details remained etched in their memories. When the wheel stopped, the couple emerged from the cabin, laughing and discussing what they had seen. They looked happy, and nothing foreshadowed trouble. They strolled around the park for a long time, eating cotton candy and taking photos by the fountain. But it was that evening that they first said to each other, "Let's come back here at night, when there's no one around. I want to see the wheel without the crowds." This phrase sounded like a promise, like a game, but it would be the beginning of their disappearance. That evening, the park closed late. People left slowly, reluctant to let the party go. The wheels stopped. The cabins stood still. The floodlights went out. But several people living nearby later claimed to have heard the creaking of metal around midnight. It was as if the wheel had started moving again. The official opening report stated, "The event was a success. The attraction is now operational." Newspapers wrote about the new symbol of the city and published photographs of smiling people in the booths. But not a single newspaper mentioned the strange light, the ringing bell, or the fact that the two young people leaving the park had agreed to return that night. It was from this moment that the story of the Ferris wheel ceased to be simply the tale of a new attraction. It became a story of how a celebration can turn into a shadow, and a symbol of joy into a gateway to the unknown. After the raucous opening, the park remained in a festive atmosphere for several weeks. People came with their families, took photos in front of the wheel, and rode it several times in a row. Newspapers wrote about the new symbol of the city, and television showed reports of smiling children and couples in love. It seemed as if the attraction had become the true heart of the renovated park. But already in the first days, strange stories began to emerge. At first, they were small details that few paid attention to. One of the workers, servicing the mechanism, said that at night, when the wheel should have been completely stopped, he heard a quiet creaking sound, as if the cabins were rocking slightly on their own. His colleagues laughed, probably the wind, but he swore there was no wind that night. Then, testimonies from visitors emerged. A young woman claimed that during the ride, her cabin shook slightly, even though there was no wind nearby, and the wheel rotated smoothly. It was as if someone else was sitting next to me, even though I was alone, she said. Her words evoked smiles, but there was a hint of anxiety in her eyes. The incident involving the teenagers generated a lot of talk. They were riding in the evening as the sun was setting. One of them noticed a couple, a man and a woman, sitting in the next cabin. But when the wheel completed its full rotation and the cabin was opposite them again, it was empty. Maybe they got out, someone said. No, but the teenager insisted. No, they couldn't have gotten out. The wheel wouldn't stop. Park security guards also began to notice oddities. Security cameras repeatedly recorded malfunctions in the area around the wheel. Footage would occasionally stop and become distorted, as if the image were swimming. Light spots resembling silhouettes would appear on the film. Park management attributed these to technical problems, but the word unclean was increasingly heard among staff. The couple who had been at the opening also returned. They had come in the evening when there were fewer people. They climbed into the cabin and the guy noticed that the glass was slightly fogged up inside, even though the air was dry and warm. The girl laughed. It's just my breath. But when they reached the top, she suddenly fell silent. Below, among the park lights, it seemed to her that one of the alleys had disappeared. In its place was a dark spot, as if a piece of the city had been cut out. After the trip, they discussed what they'd seen at length. The boy said it was an illusion, a trick of the light. The girl insisted, I saw nothing. That's when they decided, we need to come at night, when no one's around, then we'll know the truth. Meanwhile, rumors multiplied. Some claimed to hear a bell ringing as the wheel rose. Others said the cabins sometimes glowed from within, though there was no lighting. Old-timers recalled that the site of the park had once been a vacant lot where barracks stood during the war. Maybe they're coming back, whispered the old ladies on the benches. The newspapers, of course, didn't write about it. Official reports described the park as a place of joy, but in local conversations, the wheel was increasingly referred to as strange. And it was at this point that the story ceased to be simply about a new attraction. It became a story about something else hiding behind the glittering lights. The night when it all happened was warm and quiet. The park had long since closed, the lights on the rides had gone out, and only the occasional lantern along the walkways illuminated the empty paths. But the Ferris wheel still towered above the trees, dark, motionless, a huge silhouette against the sky. The couple arrived there almost at midnight. They sat on a bench, opposite the wheel, placing a bag of leftover food and a jacket next to it. The girl laughed, calling it a stupid idea, but there was a hint of excitement in her voice. The guy insisted that at night you could see true beauty, the park without the crowds, the wheel without the noise. They approached the fence. The gate's lock was unlocked, just a symbolic chain that could easily be pulled back. The cabins hung motionless, but when they stepped inside, one of them swayed slightly, as if inviting. They boarded. The door slammed behind them with an unexpected clang, and at that very moment the wheels sprang to life. A metallic squeak echoed throughout the empty park, and the cabins slowly rose. The girl exclaimed in alarm, "But the ride's off!" The boy tried to smile, but his hands clenched the handrails. Outside, a security guard patrolling the area paused. He heard a creaking sound and saw the wheel turning. Silhouettes flickered in one of the booths. He thought someone had been left inside by mistake. But as the booth rose to its highest point, the light from the flashlight revealed a strange detail. There were not 2, but 3 people inside. The wheel made a full turn. The cabin was down again. But when the guard approached, it was empty. The door was open. The seats were cold. A few belongings remained on the bench by the entrance. A jacket, a bag, a phone. But there were no people. The security guard called the police. They searched the park that night, checking every alley, utility room, even the pond. There was no trace. The security cameras installed near the wheel recorded only static at that moment. The image flickered, the lines blurred, and white spots resembling silhouettes appeared on the screen. The official report stated, "The missing persons left the park grounds in an unknown manner." But another theory quickly spread among employees and city residents. The wheel had taken them. Since then, every night when the park is empty, locals claim to hear the creaking of metal, and some swear they've seen the cabins slowly rotating on their own. After the couple's disappearance, the park temporarily became a place of concern. Authorities tried to hush up the story. Newspapers reported unauthorized entry and unclear circumstances, but rumors spread faster than official reports. People discussed only one thing: what happened on the Ferris wheel that night. The first witnesses emerged almost immediately. A security guard who saw the cabin ascend with 2 people and return empty testified. But his words sounded too strange. "I saw 3. There was someone else." Park management asked him not to speculate, but he insisted. One woman claimed to have spotted a cabin at the top, glowing softly, like a lantern inside. Another witness said she heard laughter, childish, ringing, even though the park was empty. The camera footage drew particular attention. The CCTV captured only interference. The image was shaking, the lines were blurry, but when viewed in slow motion, silhouettes could be discerned. In one frame, 2 people, in the next, 3, and then nothing. Investigators tried to attribute the whole thing to technical glitches, but the park staff began whispering, "This isn't just a simple wheel, it's a thief." Some workers refused to work night shifts. Rumors multiplied. Teenagers reported seeing faces in the cabins that weren't in line. One boy claimed the cabin he rode in during the day smelled damp, like a basement, and there were handprints on the glass, even though he was the first one in line. The couple's story became the stuff of legend. Their photographs hung on street lamps marked "missing." But local conversations echoed something else. They didn't leave, they stayed up there. It was at this moment that the Ferris wheel ceased to be just a ride. It became a place where witnesses saw more than they should have seen. And each new story only reinforced the feeling that the disappearance was not an accident, but part of something larger. Rumors grew, and each new turn of the wheel seemed too long or too fast to some. It was then that the first real clue appeared. Workers checking the cabins before their shift found a photograph on the floor of one of them. The paper was yellowed, the edges frayed, as if the photo was decades old. The photo showed the same Ferris wheel, but with one odd feature. It looked old and rusty, as if it had been standing for decades. Silhouettes of people could be discerned in the background. 2 of them looked remarkably similar to the missing couple. The photograph was handed over to the police. They examined it, but no official explanation was given. The report stated, "Origin unknown." Newspapers didn't report the discovery, but rumors spread quickly. Some claimed the photo was a fake, left by pranksters. Others said it was a ticket to another time, that the wheel wasn't just a ride but a door. The thought was increasingly echoed in conversations. They didn't disappear, they just went where the wheel is already old. The photograph became a symbol. Copies of it circulated. Teenagers snapped photos of it on their phones, and adults discussed it in their kitchens. For some, it was proof of mysticism. For others, a terrible joke. But everyone agreed on one thing. The Ferris wheel had ceased to be an ordinary amusement park. It was now a place where time and memory become entangled, and disappearance leaves traces. After the discovery of the photograph, the Ferris wheel became a symbol of anxiety. During the day, it looked familiar: brightly colored cabins, white spokes, children laughing below. But at night, the park seemed to change. Even security guards tried to give the ride a wide berth. Residents of nearby houses reported hearing the creaking of metal after midnight, even though the wheel was officially stopped. Occasionally, the cars seemed to sway slightly, and a dim light, like a candle's reflection, flickered in the windows. Several people claimed to have seen silhouettes inside, motionless, as if frozen in anticipation. The authorities tried to maintain a semblance of normality. The wheel wasn't closed, but it wasn't advertised either. It stood in the center of the park, a huge monument to itself. People rode it during the day, but rarely approached it in the evening. Even teenagers, usually drawn to the forbidden, avoided it silently. Over time, the couple's disappearance became the stuff of legend. Their names were whispered, and the photograph found in the cabin was retold as proof that the wheel was connected to something more than just a mechanism. And now, when the park comes alive again in spring, the wheel still towers above the trees. It seems ordinary, but everyone who passes by at night feels the same. The emptiness around it is thicker than anywhere else. An emptiness in which one can hear the echo of laughter, the creak of metal, and the ringing of a bell. The story remained unanswered. It ended not with a solution, but with silence. And it was precisely this silence that made the Ferris wheel not just an amusement park, but a gateway to the unknown.